evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear students and colleagues. My name is Rammerstorfer, and I'm the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs and Students at WU. And on behalf of the Rectorate, I would like to welcome you to today's edition of WU Matters, WU Talks. This is our event series, and today it's on the topic of sustainability matters. For more than 3 years now, and 60 events, socially and economically relevant topics have been made accessible to the public through interesting panel discussions and lectures within the framework of the WU Matters, WU Talks events. The main question for this evening today is how, besides the current corona crisis, other challenges for us as a society, summarized under the Sustainability Development Goals, can be mastered. Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, help that people all around the world can work towards the same goals. Here at WU Vienna, STAR is our main driver for social responsibility. They provide a network for knowledge exchange and sharing best practices for environmental, social, and economic sustainability. Part of STAR is the RCE, that is an UN-certified center and aims at open learning processes for sustainable development and socio-ecological transformations. The RCE strengthens collaboration between academia, businesses, and society in order to develop innovative solutions for a sustainable future. Tonight, our invited experts who will discuss how the Sustainable Development Goals can be a source of inspiration for businesses. Having said this, I would like to hand immediately the floor over to James Gunn. So be curious about the insights from science and research today.
Thank you, Margarita, and thank you everyone who is joining us. Good evening. Welcome to WU Matters, Sustainability Matters. My name is James Gunn, and I'll be one of your moderators this evening for the discussion, where the topic will be sustainability and specifically how to inspire businesses to think about sustainability. So we've arranged an excellent panel for you this evening with a number of experts who are here to offer their unique perspectives on the broad topic of sustainability. And before we move forward with the panel discussion, I'm going to pass off the mic over to my colleague, Aurelia Brida, with SDGs Labs to explain more about the evening and about the important work we do here at RCE Vienna and STAR.
Thank you, James. Hello and welcome. My name is Aurelia Brida, and I'll be the co-moderator tonight. If I'm not moderating panels like this, then I'm usually the project coordinator of a project called SDGs Labs, which has been running for 3 years now and gathered a lot of expertise around sustainability-related topics. So before we start with the broader discussion, I would like to share some insights about what we do and what we've learned in those past years. I hope everybody can see my screen now. Who of you has seen these before? I think after having them implemented for a couple of years, the SDGs are not a secret anymore and many people operate up from them. But they might be a bit challenging in terms of number 15, life of land, or number 4, quality education. What does that precisely mean? And in SDGs Labs, we try to translate exactly those difficult, maybe abstract terms into feasible business solutions. So in SDGs Labs, we're an Erasmus Plus Knowledge Alliance. That means we're funded by the European Commission. And we've been working together with 8 consortium partners in 4 different countries, namely in Austria, in Germany, Italy, and Portugal. And we really had this goal during those 3 years to make the SDGs our business. So how did we do that? How did we approach that? In our first year, we started by creating a common knowledge base. And that was really necessary because sustainability is such a broad term and so many people define it in different ways, especially if you want to link businesses with academia. There might be a completely different perspective on sustainability. So we tried to find that out. And then afterwards started developing methods in how to transmit this knowledge, because we don't want to share it for ourselves, but we actually want to make it accessible for the world. And that resulted in SDGs Innovation and Co-Learning Labs, where we brought together different partners from universities, partners from businesses, from NGOs, but also civic society, and started making them interact and also learn from each other. And the best practices, they're now online on our SDGs Academies platform. And that one just launched a couple of days ago. And I will now give you a sneak peek into how that looks like. Namely, it's this platform where businesses and incubators can go to and learn about what does sustainability and sustainable development goals mean, and how is an economic benefit actually helping to achieve the SDGs, or is it actually something really different? Very soon, we will also have manuals on this platform where everybody can go in and facilitate workshops on SDGs education. And if you want to have some inspiration, there's also the possibility to look at some videos and really see how other businesses already implemented sustainable development goals into their businesses, and really helping you to get some inspiration very soon. So do check it out. And in case you're curious, this is now the first of our event series, starting here in Vienna, but hopefully streaming to a couple of other countries as well. And there's going to be more online streams available. If you speak Portuguese, there's one on the 10th of December, for example, or other ones that follow very soon. You can see them on our website, SDGs Labs-EU. And having said all of this, I would also like to mention that an important bridge that we start to build is actually the bridge to civic society, so that really a lot of people get to know the SDGs. And here you have the opportunity tonight to use the chat in the YouTube link. So see if you can find the chat. And to try that out, I want to ask you, what is your personal opinion about the SDGs? So briefly write that into the chat. And during this evening, I will try to incorporate all of these questions and statements and somehow bring them into the discussion whenever they are suitable. And yeah, I will see if there's already some questions or statements. I think there's none yet. So I would like to place a wish for this discussion or conversation tonight. And that is actually that we don't see it as a discussion, but rather as a collaborative dialogue. Because what we do today is we bring together a lot of different people from different industries. And what we're often lacking is having this dialogue and trying to understand each other, why things don't work the way they're supposed to work. And only if we start having a dialogue, we can understand each other and also bring that into our everyday lives. So I see people start writing in the chat. Someone says, I think it gives people meaning and a shared purpose. Someone else is already working with the SDGs. And yeah, we're looking forward to learning more about them tonight. And I will give the word now to James and look forward to our conversation tonight.
Thank you, Aurelia. That was a really amazing little introduction to a cool project. And it's been really fun to collaborate with all these different partners in this project. As we move forward, I want to quickly move into the panel discussion, because that's really the heart of this evening. Is we're going to be discussing a number of topics regarding sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we've assembled here quite an interesting panel here. A couple folks from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, a few faculty members here at the WU, as well as another partner, Johanna, who is with a private institution that focuses on sustainability, a private consulting firm. So without further ado, we're going to launch into the discussion. And my first question, where I'm going to allow each panelist to kind of briefly introduce themselves, but also include a bit of an answer about the question, is what do the SDGs mean to you personally and for you or in your organization specifically? And so I'm going to start off here with Mr. Jason Slater with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And again, what do the SDGs mean to you personally and for the organization as a whole?
No, thanks a lot, James. Thanks. First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. It's been a pleasure. I've been fortunate to collaborate and work with VEU for a few years now. And maybe further on in this discussion, we can talk about how substantively that's coming to fruition. But so, yeah, my name is Jason Slater. I'm the head of financial management at UNIDO. UNIDO is the specialized agency that focuses on industrial development. My personal responsibility is I have around a portfolio of $1 billion of projects, 700 of them in around 120 countries. And I have a particular passion and emphasis on finance innovation. But anyway, less about me, but more about UNIDO. So we celebrate our birthday this week. It's 55 years since UNIDO was established as a specialized agency back in 1966. And it's fair to say industry looked very different back then, probably had a connotation of smoke and chimneys, whereas today, especially when we're looking at the SDGs and the agenda, industry is going through a huge transformation. And again, that's something I hope we can discuss. So by de facto, UNIDO being part of the UN system, naturally, the SDGs are part of our core mandate. I'm proud to say UNIDO particularly focuses on one goal out of the 17, SDG 9, on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And yeah, although we are trying, of course, to contribute to all of them, that is the one that we have a particular emphasis through our mandate on inclusive and sustainable industrial development, ISID. And with that, if you don't mind, I would like to hand over to my colleague who will give you much more of a specific insight into how we embed SDGs into our projects and programs. Petra, over to you.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, good evening, and thanks for having me. My name is Petra Wenitzky, and I am an industrial development expert working in the Department of Agribusiness at UNIDO. So I manage technical cooperation projects, mainly in the area of youth entrepreneurship and job creation, specifically in the scope of public-private partnerships. So yeah, what do the SDGs mean to UNIDO? Also at the level of technical cooperation projects. So all technical cooperation projects and programs are designed to operationalize inclusive and sustainable industrial development through 4 main pillars, which include creating shared prosperity, advancing economic competitiveness, safeguarding the environment, and also strengthening knowledge and institutions. And through its technical cooperation programs and projects, UNIDO addresses the SDGs. And due to the interrelated nature of the SDGs, most activities of UNIDO not only focus on one SDG, as Jason already explained, but we also address several in a project. And at UNIDO, we work with the entire spectrum of actors that are involved in industrial development and also in the achievement of SDGs. So for instance, at the level of, at the micro level, we work with people. So for instance, entrepreneurs and firms, enterprises. At meso level, we work with public and private institutions. And we also work at level of macro, so with governments and global actors. So what do the SDGs mean personally to me? Actually, they are an integral part of my projects and my daily work. So I specifically work towards achieving SDG 1, 8, economic growth, 9, of course, as Jason mentioned, 17 is also very important, and also some others. Yeah, thank you. Maybe I can ask Christian to provide some further information.
Thank you, Petra. Good evening. My name is Christian Rammel. I'm the head of the RC Vienna at the BU. Margareta already introduced the RC, so not so much work for me anymore. So James, you asked me, what is my perspective on the SDGs? I think I have a quite simple focus on it. It's just another step in the right direction. For me, it's just the benefit that the SDGs are kind of lighthouse, just as a guide for our next steps towards sustainability transformations. For the RC, the SDGs are quite important because they help us to translate the more abstract sustainability issues into concrete actions for enterprises and business. Even I do know SDGs are still abstract, but we have to work on it. We have to translate them. We have to find the right language for business people, for students, and join forces in just tackling them. But I think also for the VU, they're quite important as they're really emphasizing this very big question, how can business become a driver of sustainable transformations? And as a university, we really have to give an answer to our students to it. And the SDGs are helping us and pushing us to find answers to this. So thank you. I think I will just pass over to Johanna.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. So good evening, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to take part at this panel dialogue, as Aurelia mentioned before. So I'm presenting the Terra Institute, as James already told before. Terra Institute is a private company. We are located in the northern part of Italy, in Brixen, and our main goal is, our main aim is to motivate companies and also other organizations to work on sustainable issues, to become transformers, and to help to create another business world, a more sustainable business world. Yeah, so my part in Terra Institute is focused on EST, so that means Education for Sustainable Development, and also European projects. And we are also partner in SDGs Labs, a project I like very much, and also the SDGs are, yeah, I would say are in the focus of my doing, and also they are over the time, they became more and more an issue of my heart. Yeah. So I think the SDGs are, yeah, raise hope, give hope. We won't reach the SDGs, these goals, in the very near future, but they give a framework for a longer term and also for a longer vision. And so it's also in Terra Institute, in my organization, it's one of the goals to contribute to this broader picture, to this greater vision, to implement and to reach these goals, maybe not in 2030. So, and I will hand over to Rudolf.
Thank you, Johanna. Good evening, you all, and thanks for the invite. I'm Rudolf Dömötör. I'm director of WU Vienna's Entrepreneurship Center. So what do we do? So basically, our mission is to promote and support entrepreneurship among students in the university ecosystem. So we are raising awareness of the career choice of starting your own business. We promote and support students developing an entrepreneurial mindset and basically empowering them. In our core mission, we are open to innovative initiatives, ideas, and activities of all kinds. So that said, we do not have a specific focus on the SDGs. However, in our understanding of entrepreneurship, it is a very powerful tool because it's about identifying problems, regarding these problems as an opportunity, and basically get down to work and solve those problems. And the SDGs show that there are big problems and big challenges out there. So I do have the strong conviction that entrepreneurship is the ideal tool to address those problems. In recent years, I observed a certain approximation of the startup bubble in our university, and so to say the sustainability bubble in our university and among our students. When Christian and I started collaborating in the cross-university course of the Sustainability Challenge about 5 years ago, there were basically two types of students. Basically, the main target group of the Entrepreneurship Center, those students already interested in the field of entrepreneurship and startup scene and the like. And on the other hand, I would say, Christian, that was your main target group, the students, into the topic of sustainability. So what we did there was bringing them together. And I dare say that today there is quite an enormous overlap between those groups across the whole student community. And for those who originated from the startup bubble, I think that the SDGs represent a certain kind of North Star to develop their own business ideas. And for the other bubble, the sustainability bubble, entrepreneurship again represents a useful tool to actually get down to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rudolf. That was, and thank you so much to the entire panel for giving us a brief introduction on each of your organizations and the roles you play in these organizations and how these SDGs relate specifically. And one of the common criticisms we hear is that the SDGs are being implemented too slow, and that there's a lot of, we're not seeing a lot of traction being made right now. And this is, I'm just gonna kind of lead off with an open question to the panel. Would you agree that the SDGs are being implemented too slow? And I guess in one word, what would you say is a main barrier to successfully implementing the SDGs at this point in time? So open question, so please, don't be shy.
May I?
Yes, Jason, please do.
I give you one word. The answer, yes. The reason why, financing and the number of 13 trillion financing gap. That is what is required to finance SDGs. That is where we stand right today. That is figures pre-pandemic. So that gives you, I think, a very simple answer. Yes, financing $13 trillion, financing gap overall.
That's very clear from my perspective. And thank you for that, from that extremely shocking figure, Jason. Christian, did you have something to add in terms of one word barrier to why these SDGs are being implemented so slowly?
First of all, yes, much too slow. And second, old mindsets. I think we all have still a business understanding which is very old and wrong. You know, this old quote, the business of business is business, is dangerous. And we really need a new mindset which is much more tackling the SDGs and understands business from a different perspective.
Yeah. Rudolf, go ahead.
So yes, I agree. It's too slow. However, I would like to add a but and give a kind of a positive outlook, because we've been involved in an annual study called the Austrian Startup Monitor for the past 3 years now. So basically, this is the largest survey on the Austrian startup ecosystem, and it is carried out annually. And for the 2020 edition, we had a special focus on green startups, and we analyzed to what extent startups in Austria are addressing the sustainable development goals. And the results, I think, were pretty positive and quite impressive and remarkable, because we found that almost 3/4 of all startups in Austria pursue some kind of social and or ecological goals with their startup. So that's positive. More precisely, for 27%, so more than 1/4 of the startups in Austria, ecological goals are the #1 strategic goal. So this is good. So the startups at the forefront of business, and the 1/4 of them already have this as their #1 goal. Another 36%, and we call them the green business startups. You know, they say, well, this is important and it's a good opportunity because you may get grants if you do something in this field, but still 36% can be regarded as green business startups. So they address some kind of ecological goals. And then another 8% of the startups are social startups. So to sum up, a proportion of 71% of startups are pursuing ecological and or social goals. And I am tempted to say that the SDGs have arrived in the mainstream of the startup scene. So I think the problem here is that the startup scene itself is still just a small proportion of the whole economy, but I think there is some kind of an optimistic outlook. So at least it looks like an evolution, but it's not the revolution yet.
Yeah. No, those are some really encouraging facts and figures there that I wasn't aware of, Rudolf. So thanks for bringing those to light. And it's a bit of a silver lining because as you just said, you know, there are people and emerging leaders who are starting to make it their primary focus. Johanna, did you have a perspective that you would like to share on whether or not these SDGs are being implemented too slow, or whether it's fast enough? Are there any barriers? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, of course. I also agree that we are too slow, but I think we shouldn't focus on that too slow, because that also becomes frustrating if you mention it too often. We are too slow, we are too bad, and so on. So we really have to focus on the other side, like Rudolf did before, on the positive and optimistic views we have. And I want to share an experience from our work, consultancy work. 3 years ago, we came up with the proposal to our clients and said, okay, let's work with the SDGs. Now, in this years, we have more and more clients who come up with really very clear and concrete proposals what they want to do with the SDGs and where we should support them. But they know about the SDGs. And so I think it's awareness and to spread this spirit and thinking, and also the knowledge and the know-how about the SDGs is really a crucial thing to speed up and to go a step further in this process.
Yeah, that's also also inspiring to hear that it's starting to gain traction, that businesses are starting to pay attention. And Petra, did you have anything to add regarding the implementation of the SDGs and the speed, or any specific barriers that stand out in your mind?
Yes, sure. Definitely the global pandemic slowed down considerably the achievement of the SDGs with the economic downturn where we saw companies facing disruptions in their supply chain, the loss of customers, the loss of markets. But I would also like to share some inspiring example from my direct work with MSMEs in developing country. So in fact, they have been using these times of crisis to prepare for good times or better times. So we saw them adapt and embrace digital tools, so digitalize their operations, their functions to stand and succeed. And we have been working with them in the times of crisis. So many of them restructured or diversified their operations and services to meet new demands or changing demands. Several of them decided to upgrade their skills, to learn more, to be prepared for the future, to develop contingency plans, and others rebuild their supply systems. So we see that inspiring entrepreneurial resilience and also the acceleration of digital transformation provide actually hope that entrepreneurs would move ahead again towards sustainability, even though I agree the process will be tough, and maybe assistance from the development actors can really help to guide them and coach the entrepreneurs in adapting their strategies to become more resilient.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really nice to hear such a wide variety of thoughts and opinions on this. Hear some success stories and some silver linings, and then also hear the cold truths. That maybe we aren't making the progress we really need to address these challenges as fervently as we could. And it sounds like there's some specific policy that could change in order to speed this up. Jason, you work kind of from the global national perspective with UNIDO. Do you have any thoughts on ways that certain policies could be enacted to really put this on turbo?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I gave a very short and abrupt answer before so I was focusing on the negative, but I didn't get a chance to speak about the positive. Because if you scratch the surface of the data, and there's a fairly obvious answer to this. When we say we are slow because we don't have data, in certain countries, by de facto developing countries, they're not collecting the data. They don't have it. Climate action, SDG, we only in the Sustainable Development Goal Progress Report, which I'll happily share in the chat, only 15% of countries could collect data. So by de facto, it's slow if you don't have the data to know your progress. So that links to the positive is what can we do? We've got to get better access to data. Coming back to what Christian said at the beginning, different mindsets, looking at emerging technologies. How can that accelerate and support developing countries in knowing where do they stand in achieving, and then what do they need to do to achieve it? So I'd see two critical areas and this is something I know that the Secretary General has been keen on pushing, Antonio Guterres, is getting access to the data to be able to know where we are and where do we need to go, A, and B is accelerating access to financing. There is money out there, but getting access to it and getting it to the beneficiaries in a much more quicker, faster, transparent manner is an absolute essential must. Yeah, thank you.
And we're going to hear more about that later on as we move forward. But I do appreciate that answer there, Jason. And Johanna, you coming from the private sector here from the European perspective, do you have any thoughts on specific roles that the business community can play when implementing the SDGs here in the European perspective, or even more on the local perspective?
Yeah, I think in Europe, especially in Central Europe, it's not so much the matter of money. I can fully understand what Jason said. Of course, money can be a booster, yes, and it can bring forward a certain development, but it's much about ideas and also having good practices, sharing ideas and make good practices visible. That inspires, especially in local business communities, inspires the company in the neighborhood. Yeah, if they are working or going a sustainable way. And I think it's also important to make the benefits of the SDGs more visible. Yeah, there are a lot of benefits, and it's in the nature of companies that they want to earn money, but more and more of these companies want to earn sustainable and fair money. Yeah. And so they need, as companies, they need these benefits in terms of reputation on the market, but especially on the labor market. That's a big issue. And you know it from the news, from the late news. It's important to have a good reputation, employer brand, yeah. Or in terms of innovation and also money in the long run, yeah. Just to mention a few of them.
Yeah, no, and I thank you for that answer. That's because I think that you're kind of touching on the fact that there's a lot of different things that businesses can do. And perhaps, Rudolf, since you're working so heavily with startups here at the WU and you have hands-on experience with these young business leaders, any other thoughts on specific roles that business community can play in regards to implementing these SDGs?
I'm trying to start again with the perspective of the university, because this is where we are, and this is where I believe that we are building the necessary and proper mindsets. Because when our students graduate, they go out into the world, being leaders, being entrepreneurs, whatsoever, and they do have this in the back of their minds. So again, this is rather an evolutionary approach, but I think this contributes to getting this kind of sustainable thinking into our society. So the next step, in order to increase the speed of the process, is for us as universities to be open to collaboration with businesses, because this is where we're creating the interfaces and the links where they can soak up basically the state of the art of discussion and get fresh inputs from students, from researchers. So that's my approach to trying to accelerate the process.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because it really does bring us back into the world of mindsets, which is really where a lot of the transformation that's required for sustainability needs to occur. And Christian, you spoke specifically to this topic, and so I'd like to give the floor to you to ask you, what sort of new mindsets are needed to implement the SDGs? Anything that comes into the front of your head?
First of all, I have to agree with Rudolf. I also put my hope in this new generation of entrepreneurs because they are really positive and they're very, very engaging. For example, years ago, it was always sustainability guys, they were the good guys, they are the change makers, and then there's business, the enemy. And now it really has changed a lot, because now we have entrepreneurs, they're in NGOs, they're in businesses and driving SDGs and sustainability, and with entrepreneurs. And they are also change makers. They also want to be transformative, but they have this entrepreneurial mindset and they just want to do something as entrepreneurs for society. But back to your question about mindsets, I think it's quite simple. If you look at these new entrepreneurs, I think there are three aspects quite important. First, they are impact-oriented. Second, they are transformative, and not only improvement and efficiency gains, they're really transformative. And third, they are collaborative. So they look out for new partnerships, maybe also unusual partnerships. But the three issues, impact, transformation, and partnerships, collaboration, I think these are really essential ones. And of course, they must have a good business concept. Anyway, important, this is the base. But besides this, these are the three aspects of things. And I see them in many, many startups and many, many young students say, hey, I want to change something. And I think this is something we have to enable them and help them, meaning also education and of course also money, because what Jason said is highly important. There's a big gap between innovation in the area and the money. Banks cannot bridge that. You need really investment, impact investments, new funds and all this.
Yeah, and that's a great point there, Christian. And that's something I want to bring over to Petra, because when we talk about finance and we talk about entrepreneurs and we talk about partnerships, this is something you spoke to specifically in how UNIDO supports people on the ground, young entrepreneurs, innovators in the developing world. And staying with mindsets, what value do you think the new mindsets have into bringing this sustainability into the entrepreneurial world and specifically from UNIDO's perspective?
Well, I think it's very crucial for a lot of actors to become champions in sustainable development. And I think here the UN system, but also academia has this critical role to instill the mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, as well as sustainability mindset into young people, especially when they do capacity building. In the capacity building of young people, it's very important to instill this culture and mindset, and also to empower young people to become agents of change. So I think academia as well as UN but also, the institutions generally have this important role to, bring this mindset to young people and mainstream it. Yeah, I think and mainstreaming a course or an educational course on sustainable development will also help a lot.
And so I guess when we're thinking about institutional mindsets, Jason, I kind of want to quickly segue to you, because you exist a little more, less on the ground and more in the institutional level, in the inner workings of the UNIDO apparatus. And for someone on the outside, from my perspective, would you think that these new mindsets would be easily applied or adopted in UNIDO, and how valuable do you think these new mindsets would be from your perspective?
It's absolutely critical. It's one of the things that's coming right down from the Secretary General himself. There's been a huge push for innovation in the UN, not only in terms of our back office operations, but more importantly on how we deliver that to our beneficiaries. There are innovation centers and labs being created all over, and trying to put it really at the heart of where we do it on the ground. We ourselves, UNIDO, we have worked with, one of the things that we are putting in place right now is with the VU itself, is to teach us UNIDO, how can we best harness innovation to help beneficiaries. So we're in the process of creating a a space, an SDG Innovation Hub Center, whatever you like, so that we can use these more transformational approaches to supporting. You've got, I mean, if I may just take a specific, you're trying to teach a guy who's got a refrigeration company in Nigeria how he needs to harness renewable energy. And by harnessing renewable energy, how can he then mobilize additional financing to scale up his operations? We ourselves have got to understand how to transform that in order to advise those people on the ground that we've been supporting for 55 years. It has to be a different mindset that we introduce. So absolutely, James, we need to embrace this. And I see that not just in UNIDO, I've seen it in other organizations, World Food Programme, UNDP, UN Secretariat. More and more of these centers are being created and putting academia, businesses together. It's not just that we should know, we need to work much closely with these.
Yeah, no, that's a really amazing tidbit to hear there, and it adds a little color to this topic when you add a personal perspective of someone on the ground who may need help, but we here on a completely different level don't really even have the tools or the right mindset to do that. And what you stressed on here was the involvement of various stakeholders and these stronger collaborations between academia, business, and society, and that kind of helps us move into our next topic, where we're talking about those collaborations. And Johanna, I had a question for you. How, from your perspective, how can we create a more inclusive environment to ensure that we gather new perspectives on sustainability and really to build more diverse partnerships amongst stakeholders to ensure that every voice is heard?
Yeah, I think there are two paths. On the one side, it's important to take the opportunity and to take as many as possible opportunities to collaborate and to join projects and to join events. But it's also necessary, and that's the second path, to take the initiative. Yeah, each organization, each company has the possibility to set up a new collaboration, to set up a new network. And I think that's also a kind of new mindset, or a part of this new mindset, not only to wait until the best opportunity is coming, but take the opportunity, take the initiative. And I think we have some pioneers also in our surrounding, amongst our clients, and also Terra is in that way, it is a pioneer. And we always, we try to keep the balance. We join projects, for instance, SDGs Labs. That's not usual for a private company to take part, to participate in a project with quite a big part of science or scientific part. Yeah, that's a little bit unusual, but we create a lot of synergies, and these synergies we bring to our world, to our business world, and hopefully also the partners bring the benefits from the collaboration to their world. Yeah.
Nice.
So I think taking the opportunity, to collaborate and also to find new collaborations with unusual partners, with artists, with philosophers, like we also tried to focus on in our SDGs Labs project, because the innovation comes from this unusual combinations and thoughts.
Yeah, I think what's really important is to try to build a wide cross section of society when we're trying to address sustainability, and especially when we're trying to inspire startups to be sustainability. Rudolf, I wanted to send one your way. In terms of ensuring that we do have inclusive stakeholders and that we can make sure that we do get a large variety of people involved in the startup education and sustainability. What sort of policies or what sort of best management practices have you found really works in trying to bring sustainability and inclusiveness and really cast a wide net when it comes to stakeholders?
So firstly, there's a thought that just crossed my mind because I do see some similarities in how we push to pioneer the topic of entrepreneurship, and Christian, for example, has been pioneering the topic of sustainability. Because the trick is not to only reach the ones who are already a little bit interested in this, but basically making the whole proportion way bigger than it is right now. So finding ways to talk to the ones and get in touch with the ones who have no interest in this, have never heard about this. So that's an interesting thought that I just had. Regarding your question, how to infuse sustainability thinking into startup ideas, two perspectives on this. Well, firstly, I think in our student population, as I mentioned before, I think there is a kind of a natural development right now, and this is a very important thing because people know about Fridays for Future and they like to get involved and like to get active. So I think this is the fertile ground where new startup ideas are born. The second, and this is the more active management approach from us, is basically inviting speakers, workshop leaders, mentors who work with our students, with our startups, who provide the specific expertise or basically show how to start and run a successful startup with a strong sustainability focus. So, and this is where we are really very open and entertain and maintain close relationships to rather large ecosystem in the innovation ecosystem, speakers, workshop leaders, mentors, and the like.
Yeah, that's what's really nice is to hear that there are these synergies being created, and really what it comes down to is what I'm hearing is building these strong collaborations between academia, business, and society isn't easy. However, it seems like the return on investment, I mean, here we're at the VU, we're at the business school. The return on the investment for these efforts is exponential. And this is just going to be an open question to everybody in the panel. How can we create stronger collaborations, stronger lasting collaborations between academia, business, and society? This is just an open question to anybody on the panel. And I'd love to hear your differing perspectives.
I may intervene. Basically, I think collaborations among the different actors, such as academia and business, is already nurtured by the fact that no actor alone can find solutions to these complex sustainability issues, environmental, economic, and social challenges of our planet. So I think basically collaboration is perceived already as essential for the global actors. And in order to strengthen the collaboration, one can identify mutual interest, mutual values and benefits, and also refer to the joint commitment towards achieving SDGs. And I have some experience in public-private partnerships, as I mentioned. UNIDO has been working with the technology company HP since 2008 to address joint entrepreneurship initiatives. And so we share expertise and knowledge, and of course HP provides the technology and provides an skills training program that is on a platform. It's called HP's Learning Initiative for Entrepreneurs, so HP Live. And UNIDO provides some content to this skills development program, and we adapt the program to the needs or to the local context and regional context, and in line with the needs of our beneficiaries. So for instance, we also foster collaboration with institutions, with higher education institutions, to help them enrich their business curriculum with HP Live e-learning concepts. Or we use this online training program to provide workshops. So we work with aspiring entrepreneurs and help them convert their business idea into a business plan. So I think partnerships are very essential, where you can benefit from, sharing resources and sharing knowledge, and also goals, objectives towards creating jobs and creating startups, and so contributing to economic growth and ultimately to reach SDGs.
Yeah, that's really, to hear this perspective of a huge multinational like HP collaborating with UNIDO, and then building these partnerships in multitude and of avenues, and leveraging all of these resources. It's quite impressive and inspiring. And I guess, Johanna, you've been working as an advocate for business in SDGs Labs, and within the project itself, you've built some bridges between academia, business, and consultancy. So how do you see projects like this help build bridges? And what can small and medium-sized enterprises contribute to academia and society when it comes to sustainability? What sort of perspective and unique perspective can they bring to people who are working on sustainability?
I have had just one idea or one thought came up to the topic before. So what can support these partnerships or collaboration? And also from my experience, good collaboration is always grounded on good relations, on good personal relations. If you're looking forward to see your project colleague, you are much more motivated to produce together good results. So what we should foster, or what we should motivate, is curiosity. Who are the people at the other side from this other world? And interest, to get in contact and to get to know what are they dealing with, what are their topics.
It's so important, especially in these times. Where here in Austria, we're back in lockdown, and we've been dealing with the pandemic for a number of months, years, decades, however long it seems now. But it's important to keep that personal element there, as kind of, it seems like, the baseline for these successful partnerships. And Rudolf, a quick question for you. From the entrepreneur's perspective, what can they gain from collaborating with academia and society in terms of developing sustainable solutions?
Like for us in the Entrepreneurship Center, I would say it's twofold. Like the typical kind of one typical path of collaboration is like we invite founders who act as role models to our students, and they are sharing their stories, which is highly inspiring. Shows the students how to do it, and it's really very attractive from a business perspective as well to do something with impact. So what they would gain is, they how did you put it before, James? Like that helps them, getting back to the ground and to see like the future generations, how they are thinking, and picking up ideas from them, and of course, the opportunity to find team members for the startup. So that's very attractive to them. On the level of collaboration with corporates or SMEs, I think this is more of a kind of like an opportunity for them to get consulting from student startup teams on specific challenges they are facing in the field of sustainability. So again, just like in the sustainability challenge in the service learning track, there are specific goals, challenges of the partner institutions, and the cross-university, cross-disciplinary student teams work on these challenges over the course of one academic year. So there's a huge exchange of know-how between both sides. On the one hand, the practical perspective and the practical know-how on how we are doing this right now. On the other hand, the fresh ideas backed with a strong academic foundation, the infusion of sustainability-driven ideas to those partner companies.
Yeah, it sounds like those collaborations really bring a ton of value in terms of not only exchanging information, but creating environments where new innovative mindsets and ideas can come up. And Christian, I know I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, but I did want to ask you a specific question in regards to SDG Labs and the collaborative environment. And because this is, as Aurelia mentioned before, this is a project that focuses on agriculture, which hits about, a quarter of the SDG targets. But not only this, it collaborates between private sector, academia, and also it collaborates amongst 4 different countries. And I mean, what sort of value do these cross-cultural partnerships bring when we talk about sustainability?
Before I answer it, just please let me add some word before to the collaboration, because I agree with everyone. It is really core for SDGs, and we really have to push them. And I also agree with Johanna when she says the personal level is quite important. But to be honest, as a scientist, it's not that easy to cross the ivory boundaries, the ivory tower boundaries. And with Johanna, I had the pleasure now, I think more than 6 or 7 years to collaborate, because we had a funded project. So I had the opportunity, but obligation to work with her and sit down at the table and exchange ideas, have a mutual learning process, and develop something really innovative, which was much better than I would have done it myself, only with scientists. But I had this framework, I had this bridge between science and society, which was paid. So we sat together, we worked together. Without the project, it would be still very hard for me. I wouldn't have met Johanna, which would be a pity. And for the project, for me, and hopefully also for Johanna, so we really need these settings, these institutions where we come together and be innovative and have a dialogue at eye level. This is very, very important, because normally at university, it is still quite hard to build that bridges. And now I forgot completely your other questions. Sorry for that. What did you ask?
It was regarding the cross-cultural collaboration with SDGs Labs and the value added there between having a project with so many different partners in different countries from different, from academia, society, and the private sector.
The cross-cultural impression. Honestly, the diversity of disciplines I faced as more important, because I don't think there's so much difference between an economist from Vienna and from Berlin, for example. but different disciplines, you know, and also different backgrounds. I think this was a big strength, you know. Of course, there was a lot of learning about, especially Portugal and Austria, cultural misunderstandings. We settled it, we learned, and we got really a powerful, great team. But for the content side and for the outcome, I think it was more different discipline, academia and business, some NGOs, small business, big business, the diversity. This was the key to success and the key also for innovation.
And I think that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for best ways to inspire innovation and really to generate these fresh approaches that will inspire businesses. And this is another question to the entire panel, and feel free. How can we inspire business leaders to make sustainability a key part of their business? And that's, I think, one of the big things that's really what we're really focused on here as a group, it seems. So if anybody has a fresh idea, we'd love to hear it. And I guess, you know, like it really comes down to thinking about sustainability and what sort of inspiration is necessary, and that can really take hold with business leaders when they're trying to think about sustainability.
Can I trigger off a few then to get people
we'd love to hear it.
Inspired, but Petra gave a specific example before with HP. What we are finding is certainly in UNIDO and the UN, businesses are coming. They're recognizing the benefits of being able to collaborate with not only the UN, academia, etc. We've put in place over 100 partnerships with the private sector. We started our first back in 1998, before the SDGs, back with the Millennium Development Goal, Fiat, Microsoft, etc. So industry leaders clearly understand that they need to put in the heart of their own businesses sustainability and how they are, but then how can they use that know-how and knowledge to support? I'm now looking at developing countries, which is our primary focus. We're not typically helping Austria, Germany, UK, etc. Our support, of course, is going to those people which have much more specific needs. So it's happening, James. It's happening. They are already inspired, and more, and so thank goodness that businesses are putting sustainability more and more at the heart of what they do, because that is bringing more and more collaborations between us. Just very briefly, if I may give another nice example linking to Petra. You need to recognize this and created what we call a program for country partnership. And we had a few pilot countries. One of those was Ethiopia. And you ask yourself at the national level, what is it that Ethiopia needs support with? Textiles, leather, agro, etc. And then you start to drill down and you're mobilizing finance, IFIs, and what have you. Then you say, how can the private sector? So Illy Cafe came in as one of our key partners. And Illy Cafe is recognizing the benefits to themselves of ensuring that the people who are producing, the farmers, the coffee beans, have sustainability at their heart and doing things in the right way throughout the value chain. So it becomes a win-win. It becomes a win-win from both perspectives. So that would just be my intervention on this, is that it's happening. Hopefully more of it will start to happen if we want to scale this up, yeah? Especially back to closing that financing gap.
And then I can add also some examples from my experience, project experience with MSMEs in developing countries. I think what is inspiring is to create business models that combine innovation with green initiatives, also with sustainability. So MSMEs can be encouraged to move away from the linear economy to embrace, the circular economy model, because also the circular economy model does not only benefit, the environment, but also it creates new business practices and can generate jobs. For instance, by utilizing waste and byproducts. And in my work in, for example, in Tunisia, we have assisted some entrepreneurs that had some good ideas or combining business with sustainability. For instance, one of our entrepreneurs started to exploit the palm tree waste that comes from the production of dates, from the dates, to exploit the waste and transform them to organic fertilizers. And he now markets and sells them to organic farmers to increase the quality of the soil and to enhance productivity. Because often in palm tree waste is just burned and causes harm to health of people and the environment. So it's quite innovative, also combining sustainability and innovation. And I can also share another example of one of our entrepreneurs that is a computer engineer, a graduate from the university. So she developed a passion for cattle breeding, and since she used her IT skills to put the dose of innovation to her agribusiness. So she started her smart cattle farm, and she developed a mobile app that would monitor the health and well-being of her cattle. To ensure or to assess their sanitary and food needs, and also to identify some heat periods and temperature. And now she's selling this app to other farmers, and she already, as a micro entrepreneur, created 7 jobs, and she plans to create additional jobs. So these are actually examples from micro and small entrepreneurs, but I think it's nice to combine these aspects of innovation with, green initiatives.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear. Rudolf, did you have something to add there?
Yes, I really love those examples and role models. I would just like to challenge you a little bit now, because I was wondering if we shouldn't rephrase the question. Whether it's still about providing inspiration, or rather talk about positive or negative incentives. Because to my mind, I think we've seen the time of the pioneers who've seen sustainability as an opportunity, and basically are leading the path. And there are great examples. But right now we are at the threshold that we need to make this mainstream thing. And from a startup perspective, I mean, of course, there is a lot of personal motivation to do something with impact. But on the other hand, if startup founders get to know that investors and that the biggest VC firms will in the future only invest in startups who have some positive impact on the planet, then that's another kind of incentive. So basically, where does the money come from, and who will get money? So again, like Jason mentioned before, it's about money. And on the other hand, also some kind of negative incentives, basically externalizing those internal costs and finding ways to transform the way of how business has been done so far.
No, and I think that's really valuable perspective. Thank you for bringing that in, Rudolf, because it leads into the next line of questions that I had regarding impact investing and green finance, because these are huge huge topics that have really come to the fold in the last few years, and they're starting to become drivers of the process. And Jason, you might have a perspective on that in terms of green finance from UNIDO's perspective. I'd love to hear that from you if possible.
Actually, if I may, green finance, but on the impact investing, I just want to say I fully agree with what Rudolf just said. You know, the time now is that if you want to plug that financing gap, you've got to link it to the clearly and demonstrate the impact, whether that be green or not. Yeah. We have 17 goals. If a business can demonstrate to an impact investor that I'm not only achieving positive economic outcome, profit, whatever, but more importantly, I have gender balance, I'm contributing to climate action, etc. I know this fact because I think Christian will know as well. We did a pilot project on this. We assessed this. We went to a boot camp. We know even what the sweet spot is in terms of the investment. So absolutely, this is an area that I believe is really could leapfrog some of this gap, yeah? Is get those investors mobilized by helping, whether it be an entrepreneur, a startup, that's one thing, or those SMEs that are needing to adapt their business. But if you can show that they're having a clearly demonstrated impact on the SDGs, I believe this will open up as a positive incentive to the investment and the flow of money, 100%.
And thank you, Jason, for that perspective, especially from the global national perspective. And from the EU perspective, I know we've heard a lot about the EU Green Deal in the last couple of years, and this is maybe an open question to anyone who's bold enough to answer it. But what does that mean for sustainability, impact investing, the business community and the academia community? How can the EU Green Deal actually kind of mean something for us who are trying to work in sustainability? Are there any specific policies that we're aware of, or because I've done a little research myself, but I'm here with a panel of experts, so I'm not trying to stump you. But if anybody has any thoughts on this topic, which is getting quite a bit of traction, we'd love to hear it. Well, as I was a little worried about, the silence is a little indicative of the ambiguity coming from Brussels. My personal understanding is that the EU Green Deal does have a fair number of nods towards circular economy, which I know is something that we've discussed here quite a bit. But as we get close to the close of the evening, and we do have a number of questions coming from the audience that we'd like to address, I'm going to start to move into some of the closing questions. And really the most important one is, what's your best advice for businesses or academia and society to get started with the SDGs? Is it a one size fits all solution, or does it require different approaches? And so we'd love to hear your perspectives on this. So thank you. And I guess this question goes to whoever is feeling bold enough to answer it. I guess if there was any advice that you could give to, a researcher who was leading down this field, or business folks who are considering jumping into sustainability.
Okay, I'm bold enough, like you said, just with two sentences. I think just start. It's like founding an enterprise, don't stop considering and brewing what could I do wrong. Just start. It's an open learning process, and in the end, it's good for the business and for society. So just do. Not very scientific answer, but I think an answer which is right. I think for me it's the right answer.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable little tidbit there. Just do it. Not to quote Nike, but
yeah, maybe focus on the low-hanging fruits. I think that this is very important because they are still very abstract with a big range of activities. So business sometimes is overwhelmed by the pure, there are so many ways, what should I do now? So really look at one sector, one element in your business, try for the low-hanging fruits, and then step by step improve, evolve, and then you will learn to become better and better and increase your impact. Because I think this is very important. And back to what you said before, impact investment means also you have to show your impact, you have to prove impact. So impact investment, in referring to the SDGs, is very important for us as scientists, because we really have to come up with new assessment methods just to prove not only lip service, it's really impact. And you can, we measure it, we make it visual, just to check it out.
And Rudolf, I believe you had something that you're looking at.
Yes, I basically just like to add something like for our main target group, the aspiring entrepreneurs and aspiring startup founders. My advice would be to, you may start building your company using tools that are out there in the startup scene, the really great business model canvas or lean canvas. But with regards to sustainability, please do not stop there, because there are some additional tools out there. So basically going beyond your business model and the setting up of how the company could work. Basically, maybe you can use the sustainable business model canvas, the sustainability circle. So there are many tools out there that help you to go beyond just the business model and keep those important topics in mind and integrate them in the DNA of your project, of your idea, right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's really important there, because starting with the idea from the center and building a business around that idea is really key, because I find that when a lot of businesses think about sustainability as an after fact, they then have to go and rework all of their operations. So I think that's a really important point there. And we're coming to the end of our program, but we're not entirely finished. And my colleague Aurelia has been gathering questions from the audience, from the YouTube chat. And we want to thank everybody who stayed with us this evening and has contributed to the vibrant discussion on the YouTube chat. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Aurelia as she's compiled the questions, and we'll bring some of the questions forth to the panel. So over to you, Aurelia.
Thank you, James. Well, what an amazing discussion. And I can tell you that on the chat, there has been a really loud discussion going on as well as you were talking. One of the remarks was actually, and this one goes out to Jason and Petra, because I think it's a really interesting question or a statement that has been made. And I'll just read it out. I think there should be more investment for innovation in sustainable business models. Scaling models that have been proven effective, such as MEPESA and UNO's microcredit and other interventions that target especially the bottom of the pyramid, will partly address the financing gap. So it's less the developed countries that need the 13 trillion in ads, but rather ideas developed from the ground that can be scaled successfully. So Petra and Jason, what do you think of the UNO's microcredit model, and is it a potential solution for the financing gap that we need? Jason?
Oops. If I start maybe from policy, and Petra may go into the specifics, but I'm not so familiar particularly with that scheme, but I understand what it means. And I'd say yes. One of the areas that we've recognized is we help a business, we get it to a certain level, and then for it, we would maybe walk away, and then there is no investment. There is a need to plug that gap. And the individual who posed the question is quite right. I mentioned sweet spots. It is not a large amount of money typically that will help those businesses on the ground. And from a policy perspective, what I'm personally doing right now within UNIDO is introducing policy that will enable us as an organization, with the help of our funding partners, to plug that small microfinancing gap that can leverage the larger impact investment. So it's a great question, and I would fully agree with the person who posted it. Petra?
Yes, I can speak about, you know, at the level of SM and MSMEs and access to funding or microcredits. So basically, I mean, we assist micro and small entrepreneurs to gain access to funding. So in contact with financial institutions and banks and other financing schemes. So basically, we just help them to connect them and help them in preparing and developing a financing plan. And then we link them to potential investors and to banks. But we really help them to, to improve the quality of their financing schemes. Yeah. So we are not providing direct financing, but as a technical cooperation organization, we help in helping them in gaining access to funding.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those answers. And also thank you, Daniel, for asking that question earlier today. There has been another question concerning or targeting businesses and their role. And this question will go mainly to Christian, Rudolf, or Johanna. So we mentioned earlier that actually there's a huge demand in businesses wanting to work with the SDGs and actually the startups having a very big readiness to implement them. But what about the big businesses? Like, what about the established ones? Do we need to keep them out of the equation and just place all of our hopes into the startups? Or do we actually find a possibility to also like incentivize CEOs to implement the SDGs? So whoever unmutes themselves first can answer. Johanna is already ready to answer.
Yeah, because we are also working with larger enterprises and companies, not only SMEs. And I think it's really important to get all the companies, no matter if they are startups or if they are established, if they are small or big. It's really important also to get the big players. And we also have the experience that it's very much depends from the people. Yeah, the CEOs or those who are the drivers of sustainability within a big company or within of every company. And we got to know really, people who have a big responsibility and also the force and the power to bring this topic forward. So it's important.
Thank you very much for this. Rudolf or Christian, would you like to add something?
Maybe just a short addition. I think, yes, of course, we have to focus on them. You may have to confess it's much more difficult because many of them became successful because they have been unsustainable. And who likes to change success stories? So this is really, for startups, it's much more easier because they've not this success in the background. So I guess also in this topic, it's very important, is incentives, positive energetic incentives, just to a little bit push the trigger. But the person in chat is very right. We have, of course, also focus on them because we cannot expect that the startups will just really now change the system a lot. I think it's all about also role models. I agree with Johanna because the CEOs are also humans, they are persons. We all have to reach out to them. And I think very important are really positive role models. So these big SDG pioneers and show that they also have been successful because of the SDGs, for example. So this might be very important. But I agree, it's important and it's much more difficult than just convincing startups.
Thanks for that. And there's actually a question from Michaela that was asked before already, and I think now it fits perfectly. Because Christian, you just said CEOs are also just humans. And I think it's always this role where like it's civic society and we're somehow also working somewhere. So we're part of businesses and then we're also voting. So we're also part of the governments, and the governments are also just humans. So they are consuming, and everybody is always blaming the other person. Okay, sustainability doesn't work. And now Michaela asks, how can it be possible to re-educate society to the SDGs if most people are actually addicted to things that are not good for the environment and to human rights? So actually, if the human mindset right now is very unsustainable, how can we bring that into the business mindsets if it doesn't even work on a personal level yet?
The human mindset is not unsustainable. The human mindset is programmed by its genes actually quite cooperative. So the humans are cooperative beings by evolution, but our biggest benefit is we are very adaptive. And this is also our weak point, because we can adapt to a system which is forcing selfishness and egoists, and we adapt to a system where we are all cooperative and look for each other. So sustainability is of course a matter of people, but especially a matter of the framework how we are interacting, the framework we're making businesses. So we need this framework. So sustainability, honestly, I'm not a fan of the concept that sustainability is driven by consumers, for example. We have to educate consumers to become citizens and politically active citizens. So it's all about the framework we generate together. And also business, I think, have a very key role, because I'm an educator. But if I educate my students about e-mobility, for example, my impact is, yes, a little bit. But if business are pushing e-mobility and suddenly all advertisements for e-mobility, this is an impact. Because business are also communicating a kind of normal. But we need a new normal, an unusual normal, a more sustainable normal. So there we really need business just to show what is possible and also educate in a good way. Because of course, business had also a tradition of educating in a way we do not want so much.
Thanks a lot for that. And also pointing out that humans actually want to be cooperative and that we can do that. Another question that has been asked previously, and that one goes probably out to Rudolf, is a lot of businesses actually create sustainable solutions, but then no one is to buy it and the business gets away again, but actually the sustainability would be on demand, but the product is just not very suitable, or no, the customer is not ready to pay the amount for that. Have you seen that in startups recently, that the product was too expensive and the business had to close down again, even though it was a needed intervention?
I think I'd like to put this into perspective. I mean, the reason or the fact that startups fail is not just in the case of sustainability-driven startups. All kinds of startups fail. Maybe the product wasn't right, maybe the timing wasn't right, whatsoever. So this is not specifically just the case for sustainability-driven startups. So my approach would be, okay, well, just because you're sustainable or doing sustainable business doesn't mean that there is some instance out there, except the market, that you should succeed. So this is, getting back to the starting point, working on your business model, test the business model, and make the idea better as long as needed to actually succeed in the marketplace. So this is maybe hard, but straightforward answer to this question. And yes, there are quite prominent examples of impact startups that failed. Recently, Wiser, for example, a great startup, a great team. It just didn't work out positively for them. And there are some others, just as there are many examples of non-sustainable startups that failed. So this is maybe that's part of the game, that the risk of a startup because of its innovativeness is just there.
Awesome, thank you so much. Also for encouraging businesses that play with sustainability, that might not just be the sustainability strategy that was not in place, but actually a lot of startups can fail in the starting phase. There has been one more question in the chat, also asked from Michaela, and it's a question that I will just ask to everybody around here, and it's about, is minimalism also a topic that might help when it comes to the environment, in your opinion? So basically, should all humans just think about consuming less and using less resources? Would minimalism be an approach for this?
Well, it appears that there are minimal answers for that question with this panel. And I think that's a valuable question. I'm not sure if this is necessarily the right panel of experts for that topic specifically. I'm not sure. But that being said, we are minimally running out of time here. And we're getting close to the end. So we do really appreciate everybody's involvement. I do have one final question for everybody on the panel, which I'm going to start with here soon. And we'll be sharing the link to the SDGs Labs homepage and Facebook page in the YouTube chat. So if you in the audience are interested in staying up to date with all the work that SDGs Labs has done in the last 3 years, the online tool, the workshop materials, stay tuned in the YouTube chat, and we're going to post those links here momentarily. But final light question, as we're quickly running out of time, and I know that it's starting to get late for everybody, and but a light one. Christian, what is your favorite SDG? Do you have one specific favorite SDG out of the 17?
Number 17. So partnerships, but this was already mentioned here at the panel, because for me, this is really the key for all other SDGs. It's these partnerships, the diverse partnerships, the unusual partnerships, which are driving all the others.
Okay. And there's no penalty for naming the same SDG as someone has mentioned earlier. In fact, I think that's okay. You know, we don't have to all be unique snowflakes. Rudolf, did you have a specific SDG that you would consider your personal favorite?
It's hard to single out a specific one, but you know, from the startup teams that we've seen, so personally, I like most working with startups working on SDG 13 climate action.
Okay, climate action, very important, and that's one of the biggest ones. I think that's the hardest one for us to wrap our heads around, and so a lot of work towards that SDG. Jason, did you have a favorite that kind of sticks in your mind right now?
Okay, my day job, we work towards SDG 9, of course, around industry. But I'm with Christian that I believe that SDG 17 is absolutely fundamental to the achievement of all the others. But the one that sticks personally dear to my heart, if we could achieve it, is goal number 1, to end poverty.
Johanna, did you have a favorite SDG as we're going around the whole group that really sticks with you in your heart and soul?
Yes, I'm sorry, it's also 17. To build up partnerships, really partnerships, not only fulfilling contracts, and to keep these partnerships alive. It's much easier to build them up. They're fresh, they're new, they're interesting, but then to make them stable and sustainable, that's sometimes the challenge. and also to build bridges to other networks, to other collaborations. Yeah.
And Petra, you know, any favorite SDG that really really sticks in your heart?
Well, I like 8 and 9 and the linkage of the two because it's economic growth, industry growth, and job creation in industry and agribusiness. I like them because, of course, they focus, or my work is focused on them. But I definitely also value SDG 17.
Okay. And so we've gone around the panel, and Aurelia, I do have one last question for you. What's your favorite SDG?
I thought you would ask so. So my favorite one is definitely SDG number 6, clear water and sanitation. Because I think everybody that has a really good glass of water next to them and sees how clear it is can really appreciate that. And I'm super grateful to have that in Austria. And I'd love to see everybody around the world having really clear water around them. James, what's your favorite SDG?
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense being here in Vienna, a landlocked locale, but SDG 14, life below water, because I do have an affinity for the fishies and the coral reefs below our seas. And so thank you all, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to our illustrious panel for joining us this evening. And thank you to Aurelia and the technical support crew and all of the partners with SDGs Labs, as well as the VEU Public Events Programming and the people behind the scenes, too many to mention. Much appreciated for everybody for joining us. And as a conclusion, we can see that there's really not one, but there's a lot of different solutions. And there's many ways to go. And really, you know, we hope that you found, as a viewer, found something inspiring, found something to think about, and hopefully had some nice thoughts sparked and some motivation as we move forward to address sustainability. And I do implore you to visit the SDGs Labs website, which, as Aurelia mentioned before, is sdgs-labs.eu, or you could just type us in SDGs Labs in Facebook. We're going to post that in the YouTube chat here very soon. But we do appreciate you joining us. Thank you to everybody. Anybody have any final last words before we go ahead and say auf Wiedersehen for the evening? No?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rudolf.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.